Okay, so my watch says it's, or my phone, I guess at this point, says that it's 1 o'clock. My name is Charlie Perkins from Elon University's School of Law. My co-presenter here is Cassandra Patterson. And what you're here to talk about is canceling a snow day. So if you're in the wrong room, this is your chance to get out. What we're going to talk to you today is not so much the course design of an online class, but kind of the major tools that you would use in a management system to put together, showing the faculty members where those things are, because it's amazing, even though they may be using Twin for 30 years, they may never have thought about that feature existing before. So that's kind of giving you a scope of where it is. We're not instructional designers, we're both librarians. When you want to do this, I highly recommend that you get the expertise from your IT field, because actually, that's where this idea came from. Elon Technologies blog put out this posting about and I realize it's an eye chart. The point here is to show that there was a blog post. Things that you can do when you need to cancel class, and way you can do it online. Many of us grew up in the professor coming down as, hey, can you do a quick research class because I'm going to be presenting at a conference? And so you'd go and you'd stand in their classroom and you give them an overview of what legal research was for their particular field, maybe take them on a field trip to the library, do some conferences and whatnot. But why can we not use that same kind of idea in the online environment so the faculty members can go ahead and present the information they need their students to have, even if they're not going to be present? Now, when we're talking about missing and needing to cancel classes, they kind of fall into two categories. We have our planned, and these are the ones that we're all used to. Conferences, site visits. I was taking a class on main campus because we have tuition remission, so why not take advantage of that? And my professor was out 2 weeks in a row. 1 week she was presenting at a conference, the other week she had to go with the president to some site visit in Colorado. And so she set up some of these online classes for us to work through so we didn't fall too far behind in a quickly accelerated 10-week class where we only met once a week. And that's one of the reasons why these makeup sessions are more important, is we're having more compressed sessions, and especially when you're doing things with writing or legal research where they need to have certain skills before they can go on and move to do another thing, you don't want to have to fall back and lose that time. And of course you have unplanned makeup sessions. These are the weather events and the emergency events. Now, if you get something that says, my mother slipped and fell and I need to go halfway across the country to take care of her, you could still kind of call up the librarian and say, could you cover my class and do a research session? But if everyone's snowed in, or what happened to us in central North Carolina where we all got our schools canceled for about a week because of our hurricane, which was mind-boggling to be that far landlocked and lose a week of school to a hurricane. Nobody's coming in, so you can't hand off your classroom to somebody else. These unplanned sessions are where the online environment really can be very useful. We can do it in both places. We're going to talk about using it in both places, but the kind of conversations you're going to have with your faculty members as you prepare these sessions are going to be different. But before we get there, we have to talk about generating interest. As I mentioned, what kind of kicked this off were the blog post that was sent out by our main campus, Teaching and Learning Technologies, sent around emails. We did a presentation to our faculty, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And then, of course, there's always the word of mouth. Once you successfully get one faculty member to buy into it, they start to talk about how this worked really well for them, and they'll be able to, they'll start giving you referrals to other faculty members. And getting the faculty members to pay attention to a blog post, probably not going to happen. Emails, maybe. If you can get them at a faculty session where they're already planning on coming, that might be a good time, but good luck getting on. You'll have to work with whoever is setting the agendas for those events. Anyone have experience with this that they'd like to share? One of the things we'll do at the end is I put all this information into an outline, and we can talk about things that where you've had experiences that have been successful, unsuccessful, more successful than us, and we can all talk about what best practices might be. And of course, you may be thinking to yourself, I've got a full plate. I've got an entire library to run. I've got a full librarian's job to do. Why am I chasing around after faculty members to get them to do their makeup classes online instead of just waiting till the end of the semester and trying to cram them all in that one Friday that's set aside for makeup sessions? Well, we do have an ulterior motive here. And just like Jessica Seinfeld wrote that book with the stolen recipes about how to hide carrots and brownies, we're trying to see if we can't sneak some online training to faculty who are not currently thinking about creating an online course. Consider this. A lot of faculty might be kind of intimidated by the idea of going forward and creating an entire 16-week course about torts and whatnot. But if they only have to create one session, they're playing with all the same tools, they're talking about all the same pedagogies, but they only have to do it once. It might get them out of having to do something else. It allows them to go to a conference. All these other things. So it's that kind of where we're encouraging our faculty members to stick their toe in the shallow end of the pool and see how they feel about how the water feels to them. And why are we doing that? Standard 306, which I have to imagine has been talked to death at this conference. But that changed from 15 hours to 1/3 of the credit hours being available for online learning, plus the fact that 10 of those can already be in the first year. That's going to be driving a lot of decision makings, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on faculty members to up the availability of their courses online. Again, so this creates that safe, and along with that comes Section C, which says that we have to have the capacity, the staff, resources, we have to be competent in what it is we're doing. So, instead of making everyone sit through lots of sessions, dry sessions about how to do this, I connect it to anything they're actually doing. Giving them these small little projects they can work on that's beneficial to them is a way for them to start to learn the different tools and realize it's not quite as scary as it may seem. And finally, the thing we wanted to point out that as long as they don't go over 1/3 of the total time of their class, it doesn't come under 306. So it's still a normal course. They don't have to do any additional paperwork. They don't have to change how the students are registering for it. So if you're just going to miss 1 or 2 classes, this is a great way of doing it. You don't have to do anything additional, and it doesn't fall under any of those rules. Any questions about that before we move forward? That's kind of the why of this, and now we're going to kind of transition into, the how, and that's going to be, I've got this kind of talking about preparing the field. So what kind of conversations are we going to have with the faculty members? What questions are we going to have? And then we'll talk a little bit about where you find the different things, the forums, the chat features, the video displays, and all that other stuff as we transition to the second half of the presentation. All right. So when we're speaking with our faculty members, the first thing we want to do is figure out what their expectations are. If anyone has worked with faculty members who are doing distance education, they have wildly different expectations for what it is going to be like. Some are like, oh yeah, I'll just get up and I'll talk in front of a mic just like I talk in front of the class, and in 40 minutes I'll be done, I'll turn off the recorder, and that's the class, right? And others of them are like, oh, this means that I'm going to have to go back to school, and I'm going to have to figure out. So, it's discussed expectations. The truth is going to fall somewhere between those two polar extremes. But getting everyone on board is a good thing. Also, think about tailoring the experience to the faculty member's preferences. So, if the faculty member is really uncomfortable on camera, which is odd, but we do have some who are, thinking about whether or not an asynchronous class makes more sense for them and how to best present that information. If the professor doesn't like to do a whole lot of pre-work and just think that they can get up there and speak extemporaneously, giving them the ability to do the live web broadcast can be useful. And also, after a couple times of it, they may realize that even though in theory it looks similar to talking in front of a class, the experience is so completely different. After they get that experience, then they can start to see how they want to retailer their approaches. I always remind people whenever we're doing things, instead of saying we have Moodle or we have WebEx, let's talk about what capabilities do they need. Do they need the ability to talk, to do a face-to-face conversation with a student? Do they need the capability to, and then after we've figured out what capabilities it is they're looking for, then we can start to look at rummage around in our toolbox and figure out what best meets their requirements. But part of that is figure out if they have preferred platforms. If they're like, I am a PowerPoint person, I've used PowerPoint for 30 years, I'm good to go there, then by all means, we're going to use PowerPoint because you're comfortable in it. And even if you can do it better using Camtasia, that's fine. We're just going to roll forward with that until they're ready to transition to something new. Importance of planning. Speak with our faculty early. I mean, obviously, that makes sense. And this is something that, of course, makes sense when we're dealing with the planned missing of classes. So if I know I'm going to go to a conference, you can talk to them early. You can build out a beautiful video presentation they're going to do or whatnot, and that can be in the can before the school even starts. So you're ready to go with that, and everything's already preloaded. But also talk to them about, all right, well, what if we have a snowstorm? How are you going to move forward with that? If they already kind of have thought through that process, because they're going to have to do that the night before, the morning of the snowstorm. You can't, because you don't know which lecture. So you don't want to go ahead and record a lecture for every single course that could get snowed out. But already have that plan in place. And during that process, this is a good time. You've got a faculty member who's interested. You're talking about the plan of how they're going to do it. You've shown them some of the tools that are available. This is a good time to partner with whatever your school calls instructional designers, technologists, digital learning designers. Make sure you bring them into the field. Make the introduction with the faculty members so they're getting the good information they need. And then remind them to incorporate this plan into the syllabus. If the students know this is going to happen ahead of time, they're more likely to accept it. So if you know you're going to be out at a conference, that day already on the syllabus says, but also have in there a paragraph that says, in case of a snow day, we are going to do an online class and this is the way it's going to look. And then, which is always important, spend some time practicing. We've been helping our faculty members using WebEx for normal classes, and even though we've shown them how to set it up, some faculty members, you show them once, they're off to the races, and they're coming up with new and inventive ways of doing things that you never even thought of, great little workarounds. And other faculty members, something about technology, as soon as they touch it, it just doesn't work for them like you normally would. And so, practice with them, make sure they're familiar, make sure they're comfortable with whatever it is, especially if you're doing one of these unplanned, where they can't just run down to where you are to help them make it all look right. If you're doing an unplanned snow day, again, just quickly thinking through some of the decisions that need to be made. You're going to want to talk about what type of makeup. Are we all going to meet at 5 o'clock on a snow day in order to have a synchronous meeting? Will there be a chat board that's up? How is the class going to be alerted? If they've already been told ahead of time. It's in the syllabus. It's posted on on Twin or Moodle or Canvas or Blackboard. Will there be an email that goes out with the final details? Make sure that's all clear to the students ahead of time. And also then figure out what happens if a student can't participate. If there's a snowstorm, it's quite likely, at least some of your students, especially if you're teaching a big 70-student section of torts or something, somebody's going to have their power be out. So what are the contingency plans for somebody if they can't participate? Again, notification plans. As I mentioned before, this is just a mock-up of what you can do with your Twin page. Because when Cassandra and I were putting this together, it's like, well, it's really easy when you're using Moodle, because Moodle you can put together folders and you can have, each individual day. But how would you really show this on Twin? And then it was obvious. You use a page on the front page, so as soon as they log into your class, it's right there. School may be closed, but class goes on. And, you can put your links in there to whatever it is they need to do, and everything's good. So you got it in the syllabus, you got it on the management system. If, Generally speaking, people are talking about a snow day 3 days before it happens. At least in North Carolina, they're talking about a month before it happens. So make the in-class announcement, hey, if there is going to be a snow day, let's make sure everyone remembers we're going to meet this way. You can send out an email and postings on your CMS. All right. So those are some of the initial conversations you're going to have preparing the field. Now what we're going to show you is what are the tools in CMSs, and we are going to use Moodle, and we're going to use Twen because everyone uses Twen. Everyone has access to Twen because it's with Westlaw. If we showed Moodle and Blackboard and Canvas, they're just going to get really repetitive really quick. Most of those commercial vendors, the buttons may be in different places, but they largely do the same things. So, and that's really, you don't want to give faculty members too many choices right up front, but kind of create a decision tree for them. And the first decision that you're going to want to talk about is whether or not it's an asynchronous or synchronous class. We don't really have an opinion about which one is better, but we like to give the options to the faculty members, so whatever works best for them. So here's where we're going to hand it over to Cassandra, and she's going to talk about the tools you would use in these systems to put together an asynchronous course.
Thank you. Okay, so we all kind of know what the difference is between the asynchronous and synchronous classes. The async is more of the, you don't have to be live. You can be in different locations. You can post it in one today, like right now, and it'd be due in an hour or tomorrow. So it's the option to hold the class but not have to do anything right at that exact moment with everybody at one time. So how we broke it down, we came up with 3 parts or options for the asynchronous class. Those are, your lecture where you're spitting out the information. The discussion board is another option where you post questions, you get a forum dialogue with the students, allow them to participate in that way, and then also quizzing. So you can also post a quiz, have them do that. It'll be a way to have an assessment if you want to tie it with your lecture. I'll go through each one a little bit. So for the lecture, there are 3 ways that you can do that. You can do a PowerPoint with text notes. That's pretty, you're very familiar with that. You can do a presentation with narration. So that is doing some sort of presentation where you voice over it, and then you save it, and you can post it to whether it's the course management system, Twen. And then another option is to do a video recording. You can record yourself doing the lecture or use some kind of platform to kind of have that where it has you and the presentation at the same time. What does the PowerPoint with text notes look like? So this is just a slide from a legislative history presentation that we did at Elon. And it's just basically you have your presentation slide up, and then in the bottom you have the text notes. Pretty simple. So in playing with PowerPoint, I recently learned this actually within a week, this past week, that PowerPoint allows you to do the record slideshow. So you can do the narration within PowerPoint, so you don't have to use like another software system. You can, but you can use straight from your presentation. You can go straight to record slideshow. This is what pops up. It's the presenter view that you usually get when you're presenting. It gives you the ability to do each slide certain time limit. So if you want to stay on this slide for 10 seconds, you can change it later if you decide you went too long on something, or it allows you a lot of different options to do that. It also allows you to do, so you can write on it, you can circle. It's not as fancy as what I'll show you next, but that option is there. And then you just end show. The key to that is when you save it, when you end the show and you save it, it will save over top of any other narration that you've already done. So if you want to use this feature and you want to save it, but you want to have multiple versions, you want to save it in a different file name. So some of the other options that I was mentioning about narrate, when you want to do a presentation with narration, are Prezi and Visme. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. Those are your more fancy presentation softwares, but they both allow narration throughout the presentation, and you can record it. So that is another option. Another way to do a lecture is to record video. Depending on what your institution has, we have Camtasia, so you may have Panopto, Kaltura. You could simply also just use, your computer if you want to record the slides or yourself doing the presentation. It doesn't have to be any of this. All of this will allow you to post to whatever course management system that you're using. So if you do the lecture, that is of course an option. Another key thing to asynchronous classes is the discussion board, because this is where you'll get the back and forth with the students. You'll get the students to be able to type up their responses. They can also, if you want to have them do video responses, you can also have them post it there, or you can do different options with that. But the discussion board is a place where they can post, reply to other students. So it's good to get participation in that way. You can use that on Twin, course management systems. We have Moodle, so that's where I will show that. Twin, to get to that feature, in the navigation, once you have your course set up, in the navigation section, it has a forums link that you'll go to. Create forum. You want to put in a forum name. I just put an example, legal analytics discussion. I just label it discussion, that way they know exactly what it is when they look at the link, even though it's under forums. Twin gives you a few options. You can allow the students to post to main topics. You can allow them to reply. You can also require the participants to post before they can view other people's responses. So that's probably one of the more important features. So that way they're not just looking at other people's responses and then generating their own from that. So that is a feature that you could use to make sure that they're not looking at other responses before doing their own. And this is what it looks like. It's pretty simple. They don't have a lot of the features that some of your course management systems will have. This example, Elon has Moodle, so I pulled this up. At Elon, we actually did basically a research this past year, totally through our Elon Moodle course management versus using our Twin. So it allowed us to do more things. So like we can add these activities, we can post, video links, we can do a lot of different things. So here, I sectioned off just another class, and it just allows you to add an activity or resource. And forum is one of them. There are a whole bunch of other features, quizzing and things like that. But for the discussion board, forum is where we would go. They have another feature, it's called Forum Next Generation, that adds even more features on top of the ones that they provide here. So here it does allow you again to do more than Twin would. It allows you to, so you put your forum name, description. Up at the top, it has, so you can insert a word, picture, video. It even ties to the video conferencing, I guess you would call it that, platform, Kaltura. So it also has that place where you can link to that from the video. Let's say you uploaded a video to the Kaltura system. It allows you to also link to that within the forum. So I guess if there's a course management system within your institution, it might be helpful to try to use that, because it does allow a lot of add-ons and plugins you wouldn't have with Twin. It also allows you to do a lot of different things. You can restrict access if you want to just put it for a certain time limit. It allows you to do that. Some of the same restrictions, you can, if you only want them to post one response, if you want word limits, you can do things like that. And this is what it'll look like. So you'll have your, let's say it was week 12. Let's say so for example, we set up our entire 1L class on it. So we would have already had it up if we had to do a makeup. We could have just pulled up the class and then went to it and maybe added these words makeup to it. And then just add the discussion, and that will allow us to have the discussion makeup for the class instead of canceling it. Quizzes, we have a question mark on that because you may or may not want to have a quiz, but we think it would be a good way to, especially if you're only doing the lecture portion, and if you wanted to skip the discussion portion, this would definitely be a way to quiz them on the material that you want to make sure that they get for that class period. This is a variety of quiz platforms that you can use. There was a presentation on ClassMaker, so that's one of the options. The course management systems, Blackboard, Canvas, Moodle, whichever one you have, all of them have quiz, a way to create quizzes and post those. Twin does have it as well. I'll go over that a little bit. And Cali, they do have, I think it's QuizRite is what it's called. It's fairly, I don't know if it's how developed it is. I think it's still kind of new. I know there was a presentation on that as well, I think, for asynchronous classes here. So you can check that out. That's another option for generating quizzes. On Twin, under the assignments and quizzes part of the navigation is where you'll get to that. Where the arrow is, let's see. The default is gradebook navigation. You want to go click that and go to add quiz. Once there, it'll give you the option to add or edit. If it's new, you're going to add. So this is what'll pop up when you get to that. It'll hit gradebook. If you have multiple gradebooks, it'll give you that option to pick one. And then you'll have the option also to do either a new quiz or an existing. If you don't have an existing, it'll just give you new. And so you'll go to that, and then you can create, or you can go back and cancel. And then it allows you to enter the quiz name. You can enter the quiz question, answers, notes, timers, any publishing options that you have. And it'll prompt you to then go to a section if you want to section it off, if you want to add additional questions, whether you can pull questions from other quiz banks that you may have already had from another class within Twin. So those are all options. And again, quizzes are also available on your course management systems, whichever you will have within your institution. It's fairly the same way. You just add an activity, go to quiz, and it gives you a variety of options. Timing, you can put if you only want it for an hour, you only want it available for 2 days. You have all that. If you want one attempt, you can make it one. You can make it to where they can only see the answers once they're done. Or if you don't want them to see the answers until everybody's taking the quiz and the quiz is closed, then you can do that as well. And that's what it'll look like once you produce it. Again, another good thing when you already have it in place is that you can just insert it into the class period that you already have created. A couple of things to, I guess, think about when you're looking to create an asynchronous class. You want to look at what are the number of topics that you want to do. So whatever class it is that you're missing, how do you want to section it off? How do you want to if you're doing a discussion post, how do you want to make that question? What do you want it to look like? Do you need to split it up? Is it going to be something more in depth? Video watching requirement. Do you want them to have to watch a video if you want them to do a quiz, or if you want them to do a discussion post? Do you want to have some like an introductory video to kind of tell them, you know, here's some things that you should have gotten out of your reading, here's some things you should have understood or taken away from what you read? You can post that. Do you want them to do reading responses? There are a couple of things that come with that. Do you want them, if you're doing a discussion post, to be able to respond to other students' responses? Do you want to set minimum or maximum posts? Do you want to have a minimum or maximum amount of words or replies? Those are some other things to consider. And we were talking to someone yesterday as well about this, and they mentioned about the I agree. Do you want to state to them, like, that's not an appropriate response if it is a response, if you are required to respond? And also just etiquette, making sure that the students adhere to proper etiquette online. There are a lot of guides for etiquette for online classes. I guess one of the main things is just to be professional. And just to kind of get a little bit of participation, if anyone has any ideas on this, what kind of rules could there be for etiquette for an online class? Any suggestions or?
We could obviously start with the basics and say, please mute your mic when you're not, yeah, those kind of things.
So muting.
Sometimes that's an automatic thing you can program in before, like when they log in, it's automatic mute. But sometimes you have to make sure to remind them to turn it off when they're done talking. Also be conscious of the background noise when they are there, so you can hear them.
Yeah.
And that goes for professors too. Like
Maybe especially for professors.
yeah, if they're trying to teach with the dishwasher going in the background and the dog barking and all that.
Good points.
Though sometimes on the snow day, we have no choice.
Right.
And the dogs can be cute.
Yeah. When my dog does that, I tell them that he's volunteering the answer. My class caster also is based on my dog. Beyond, I mean, most of us have etiquette in our syllabus already,
Okay.
and it carries over. It's really nice to have the reminder of some of these mic things, but most of us put that kind of thing in general, or most schools have a policy in their student handbook about a lot of this stuff. So I would double check that to make sure you're not giving something that's contrary. Most universities have created these policies. You may not know about them, but if your law school has it, your university probably has. And so you can crib without, and if your university has it, because I see your look, steal from another. Don't reinvent the wheel.
That's a good point. I didn't think to check that. Anybody else?
This is just a funny anecdote, but we were trying all kinds of different video platforms for the academic continuity plan for basically snow days or whatever. But we tried one, I think it was Adobe Connect or something, and one of the students had one of those cameras that will put like teddy bear ears on them, turn them into an alien, and they just kept switching. It's like, you know, Snapchat effects. He was really desperate for attention, obviously. It was funny for a second, but
Oh my God, that's great. I'm going to use that for the professor.
you should do it. Yeah, get a little plug-in for your webcam. I don't know.
Well, think about it. You could then, the quiz could be, what Snapchat did I have on? And you can really see
Oh,
if they're
wow.
paying
Yeah.
attention.
It's a way of knowing that they actually want
Well,
to.
that's
Yeah.
Going back to technical stuff, and this is hopefully soon to be completely out of date. I think this now works, but on the Mac, recording sound on the PowerPoint from Office 2011 and back was a no-go.
Yeah.
I would have, I once assigned, like, was helping someone, and I was like, oh, yeah, your students can just record. And I tested on my Mac, it worked right, because it works great for 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, it doesn't work for Office 2008, 11, the one before it. It seems to work okay on 16, but if you do have a faculty member using an older version of Office for the Mac who wants to record into PowerPoint, they should be aware of that.
Yeah,
Hopefully they are, but it's time.
that's a great tip. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I think another obvious one would be, be respectful.
Yeah.
We-
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they forget. It looks a lot like chat, but it's not, just chatting back and forth on their phones. It's
yeah.
a professional environment they need to remain in.
So hand it back over. Thank you.
All right, so now I'm going to talk to you a little bit, if you've got a faculty member who's convinced, no, I want to do this synchronously. We're going to do it live, as Bill O'Reilly once said. And the kind of questions we're going to talk about is, do you want to do this? You can do this text-based, and does that make sense for you? Also, we've got a lot of online web hosting systems you can use. What's the best one for your needs? And we'll talk a little bit about how you want to talk to the faculty about how it seems easier, but it's not the same. And then we'll talk a little bit about recording the sessions. So that's just kind of a quick overview of some of the things that are coming up next. So, using live text-based discussions. Why is this something that might be useful and not just being a faster form? We're all together at the same time. We've got the text system up. When you go into Westlaw, when you go into Twin, it's right there. It's called live discussion. It gives you a chat window. Some advantages and disadvantages of this is it's relatively easy technology for everyone to use. Accessibility is high because everyone is able to read. You don't have to worry about people mics cutting in and out. Some of the things that make it a little bit hard is it kind of looks like you're just chatting. It also is when the instructor wants to put out a big old chunk of information, you get this big block of information and it becomes an eye chart and it's really hard to read through. Sometimes six students will all respond at the same time and you'll miss response number 3 in it. So there are certain things that you would have to do with a live discussion, but this is certainly something, because of its ease of use, because of the low technology threshold that's required, because there aren't lots of other things going on, if you just want to have a live discussion, this could be a really easy way for a faculty member to get into like a snow day type event. And again, when you go into them, you click the live discussion here on the board, and it's going to bring up the live discussion page, and all you do is go over there, create the new discussion. The lovely thing about Twin, very few options. We keep things very, very simple. Put the name, a quick description, what time they're going to be talking about, and then decide whether or not you want a moderator. Do you want somebody who's going to have to okay posts before they go live? Probably not required in a law school format, but something to think about. Mention it to the faculty member just so they understand that it's there. Whenever I can avoid using a password, I avoid using passwords. There are too many of them. It's just another excuse for a student. One more thing for a student to lose. And how many people are desperately trying to get into a live discussion about 1L torts on a mid-November day? So, I don't know if the security is really necessary there. Then once you've got it going, this is what it would look like if you've got an active discussion going on. You've got the green enter room, as the student can see. Complete it, you can make the transcript available. So if a student is not able to join or wants to be able to review the transcript later for their notes, you have the option of making that available to the students. And that's a great way of just kind of documenting everything had. It increases accessibility for students. And just one more useful thing, to remind your faculty members that they have available to them. One of the things you might want to think about doing here in this situation, even though we talked about having those prepared videos that Cassandra had to introduce information for the forum, this might be a good time to have something like that so the instructor doesn't have to give a big old ball of text all at once. Maybe introduce it with a PowerPoint slide and then review this PowerPoint slide before you come to the forum, before you do the live discussion, watch this video before you come to the live discussion, and then once we've done that, that way we don't have to do the big information dump. These are just options, things to talk to your faculty member about, ways to make things better. Whatever the faculty member wants to do, it's their class. And same way, the Moodle, they call it chat. You just come in here, it looks very similar to what Twin has, where you put your time frame up there. We started off with general up here, where you would put the name and then the description. Again, as Cassandra mentioned, you could link all these kind of plugins from it. And then you would set what your time is for your chat session. And those are really the only options you really need to think about. You do have this restrict access section here. So this is some place where if you had wanted to record a video or create something else that you wanted them to look at beforehand, you can put in Moodle restrict access so they can't get into the live discussion until they've already watched that video that I posted on Moodle. So that's a way of forcing students to do what they need to do instead of just taking them off their word. And then of course, once you've written that up, it just shows up wherever you place it, right there on the home page, and they can click right into it. Live video, this is the one the faculty always seem to want to jump to. They think this is going to be the easiest thing to do. I'll just put up the camera and I'll talk, and that'll be the class. There are lots of different online hosting systems, and I think that may be why people feel so comfortable with it. It's like, oh, it's just like doing a Skype call or a Google Hangout. Google Hangout is great. You may have heard they're getting rid of it, but that's going to take a couple years. So you can still play with Google Hangouts for a long time. Problem with Google Hangouts is really only going to work for a seminar class. I think the number of people you can have I think it's like 10, and I think you can go to 15 if you're in an education. Higher? Where are we?
At least 25.
25? Okay. The material I was seeing showed 10 for the free version, but still, that's still not going to take you care of your 70-person section towards class. Many institutions have an institutional license to Zoom. If you don't, for whatever reason, you probably have it to a different system, but let's imagine a world where you don't have an institutional license to any of these systems. You can do free Zoom, and Zoom will let you go up to, I think, 500 people, so that's going to take care of any towards class that we're imagining, but it limits you to, the free version limits you to 40 minutes. So,
Take a break.
take a break, come back, and we're going to have another discussion. Or maybe we'll do a 40-minute live, and then we'll put some, all those things are there. We can think about them, we can work through them. But, letting your faculty members know those things exist. And then, of course, you've got the big paid players. Panopto's here, and we use WebEx, so that's the one we're going to talk about is what we're most comfortable with. You just go in there. The great thing about WebEx is that and I'm sure Panopto does the same thing, there are plugins for your course management system. So I go into Moodle, I add an activity or resource, I can scroll right down to WebEx meeting, and it's going to build that right into my course page. So I can put the name of the thing, I can give a description of it, I can set what the hours are going to be, any additional requirements, whether or not the students are allowed to download the video, and after I've done that, it shows up right there in the course page. They can click on it. Before the meeting, I have the host, so I can host the meeting, otherwise you're not yet available to join. Once we're in the window or somebody starts hosting, they can join the meeting, and they're going to get a page like this if somebody was actually on here talking. One of the things you can think about here is you have the ability to share your screens, you have the ability to see who your participants are, to open up a chat window, and as we were discussing earlier, setting that so everyone is muted when they come in is great. The other thing you might want to think about is combining this with a text-based live discussion, in that maybe the instructor talks, but everyone else makes their responses using chat. That way, the instructor can keep everything clear. He or she is the only person who is talking, so you don't have people talking over each other. And it's easier for her to monitor and maintain what's going on in the class. Because, as we all know, as we've worked through these things, the recommendation is that you have 2 people in the classroom, one person monitoring the chat, putting out any technical fires, and then one person doing the actual instructing. But if you're doing this as a snow day, you know, what do you get? Put your 5-year-old on your tech shooting, or the dog, or the cat, you know, so that's not gonna work so well. So, just paring down the number of things that the instructor has to think about at any one time. Plus, that way, you've got a transcript of what all the things the students said, makes it more accessible, because Lord knows how many crazy different mics you get. And people can't, you know, they're too loud, they're too soft, they break in and they break out, all the sounds that are going on in the background. All that stuff occurs. You could certainly use the tools, but streamlining things is better. Managing class, many of the things we already talked about, micromanagement, whether or not you want to share your webcam feed. If you have more questions, we sat around this table last year and did a presentation just about WebEx. So, you know, there's an hour-long presentation on last year's CaliCon. I encourage you to do that. Don't want to feel like I'm repeating myself too much and bore you all too long. Then, of course, once you're done with the thing, it'll come up, Moodle will automatically populate it right there, populate the recording of the session right there in on your class page. So you don't have to go through, you don't have to find the link.
WebEx also integrates with the CMS?
Yep.
Okay, that's
We have not, everything I've shown you here has been from Moodle. We have not gone into WebEx at all. We have not individually logged into WebEx at all.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. That's cool.
So,
You can start the video conference through Moodle.
yep,
That's cool.
everything works. So I didn't have to go find a link. It brought it over right here. Now, tell your students that they have to be patient. Though I think, you know, I did a test run of this last night and the video didn't post until this morning. And it was a relatively short video. This is a video from the training I did with our faculty members in January about setting up appointments so that if they wanted to use Moodle for these kind of things, they could. And this is also one of those things, expectation management. That was a 40-minute training just on how to set up an appointment with faculty members in this thing. So it's going to take a little bit of time, just like they think it's going to take. You know, I'll just get up there and talk. It's like, oh yeah, well, I'll just show them just like I did with you all here. Well, click, 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 and they'll get it. No. When you walk them through the steps, you show them everything. You know, to keep the entire group together, it takes a while. So, you know, build that into your planning. But yeah, I can then click in it, and it'll bring up the video. You can see that, you know, I'm showing the web page here, and then up in the corner, you've got the webcam of me talking. A lot of faculty members, for some reason, like to shy away from having the video camera on. Really encourage them to use the video camera. It seems strange, but even though the students know this is a human being, they engage with them on a regular basis. When it's just a disembodied voice floating over some PowerPoint slides, it makes it really hard for the students to connect. Even if it's this tiny little thumbnail, which you really can't see too well, something triggers in their brain. So, you know, take advantage of it, use it. And then, here's once we're back in here, again, you can allow students to download your recordings. Maybe you decide, it was great having that room open. You can extend the availability. If you click on this button, I can reuse this room over and over again until whatever date I set, so I don't have to create new rooms. So if I want to do office hours or anything else like that, that's all available right there. This, we were talking about everything we just did was all from the login in Moodle. If you were to go to the WebEx login, this is what the home page looks like. WebEx gives all of the faculty members our own room. So at any time, I can start a meeting at elon.edu/cperkins8. And so I can use that for office hours or whatnot. I can always just put that up. That can be our default. Or I can schedule a meeting right here, and that'll allow people to come in. So like if we've got multiple different classes, you can do that. And one of the useful things about that is when I schedule the meeting, I can put in attendees. I fill in everyone's attendee list, and then they all get emails saying that, hey, you've got a class, you want to add this to your calendar. Then it goes on the calendar, they get a reminder, all they have to do is click, boom, they're in the system. And life is good. This is what it looks like once you've created the meeting. So if even though they've gotten an email, students need 2 or 3 different points of contact to remember where things are. You can grab this message link and copy it over to your management system. So if you are using Twen, you can copy that over to Twen as far as a link they can then follow, and that'll allow them to get access to it. From this page, you can also get access to all your old recordings, and then you have the ability to use these download features right here, or you can share the link to an old video you may have done to whoever it is you want to use the material. And again, we're highlighting WebEx and Twen, WebEx and Moodle, but all of the major systems are going to have similar features. It's just a matter of getting in there and figuring out what they are. All right. Yes.
Is there like an automatic record button within WebEx so that if you, in case the professor is a little forgetful or something?
One of the advanced options you can set is for an automatic record.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
I believe, at least it was on one of the versions. I think it's still
Please
there.
set up a recurrency.
Okay, so if you're going to automatically record your faculty as a faculty member, you better warn them.
Oh, yeah.
They, our university starts, I record every class, I podcast it through Kelly, and I also have them video recorded for people who are out and whatever. So I'm not doing it for
Right.
other things. But they start the tape 15 minutes before and they end it 15 minutes after,
Yeah.
so that they capture everything in case there's a differential. And I have a deal that they edit that out because students come up and talk to me about personal things or whatever, and if that ever got, that would be a huge concern to students or privacy issues or so. Make sure you notify faculty if you're doing that, and be thoughtful about editing that out.
Oh, yeah.
In WebEx, it's an option when you set up a recurrence. So if we're setting up so it's going to be available every class for the semester, at that point we tell it whether or not we want it to record. If you open just a meeting, you have to manually tell it to record.
But often people, when they set that for the recurrence,
Yeah, they forget about it.
they do add a few minutes on each side, and the faculty won't necessarily record, so who's ever, if someone's editing it, or if you do that and they post it themselves, just remind them that they may want to check those, the front and the back end, because I'm just telling you that,
No, it's taken us couple years since we really started kicking in with the class lecture captures especially, but it would apply here too. Just having a basic policy on, just before we start doing this, you guys should know that there's 15 minutes at the beginning of end and don't open your email when screen sharing is happening and those kind of things, and also the request procedures and all of them.
because,
Yeah,
mine is not distributed until I authorize it, but, and they know, because, all the students come up before or after it, and I have some very personal things that students have shared with disasters that I would hate to have just been broadcast to all the students who watch the
I'm
tape.
the gatekeeper for our lecture capture at U of R, and I have caught so many possible bad scenarios before sending things out. And
Awesome.
I'm so glad I edited that before sending.
Yes.
How do you handle attendance, that they attended, particularly if it's asynchronous?
Right. So like an asynchronous course, in order to that would be why you would use some of the different things, like we're going to use the quiz as partially an attendance thing, or generally speaking, asynchronous class, the heart and soul of an asynchronous class is the forum discussion. And generally speaking, a forum discussion is going to have a rule is you have to do an initial post and then reply to other people's posts. So if you don't have 3 posts on there, you didn't attend the class.
Right, but you'd still have to kind of look through whatever
Right.
is set up and then plug that into
And then plug that into-
whatever your attendance
Right.
service was.
But of course, you could do a very simple quiz. It's like, I was here, yes, no.
There are other things you can do. You can embed something in the middle that they have to report back on. I mean, I wasn't joking about suddenly turning on a Snapchat in the middle of, I have, to do it, I've just embedded, this is the statement that you're gonna have to, and I mention a song, or if I've told a joke, that's the thing.
Yeah.
What did I,
A lot of CLEs do that, and your magic word is.
right, so I mean, it's, they're also supposed to be honorable about it.
Yeah. The other thing is, if you're doing it through a web system like Moodle or whatnot, it is supposed to be able to track the fact that the student was involved. You can pull an analytic. We use that for our videos, and we always have a student come and crying, complaining that, yes, no, I was really there, the system just for somehow didn't see me, and we usually don't fight that. But, it gets you to at least an 80% solution real quick, and then you can, I don't think we've ever gotten a false positive, just false negatives. Anything else? All right. What I have up here on the screen is just a quick little outline of the checklist of the things that we talked about in the presentation. If there's anything that you are interested in that you think we should add or take out, just let me know. Email me at cperkins8@elon. At least, actually, email me at charles.a.perkins@gmail.com. So, and that probably will work better. And then, and if, this is something that we think will be really helpful for our faculty, but after we kind of got the ball rolling in the winter, we had a really mild winter. We lost a whole bunch of snow days in September and then no snow all winter long, so we never got a real chance to test this out. So, but if this is something you're interested in doing at your school, again, reach out to me. I'd love to hear your experiences and brainstorm with ways to make it better. But thank you all for your attention, and that's pretty much our hour. The mics are still going to be hot, so.
So thank you. I had an emergency cancellation on Wednesday, and I was trying to think about how I'm going to make it up without, because I do evening students and makeups are next to impossible.
Oh, that's death. That's death.
Right, no, makeups are next to impossible, so I've been doing, trying to come up with ways to do my makeup without requiring them to come. And we have on 24,
Okay.
so I'm going to try that, I think. But,
Yeah, it's one of those things. As soon as somebody said this, like that makes 100% sense. Why didn't we do this before? And that's kind of where we are with the video.
But I mean, I have them video capture the course just in case someone's out or has an emergency, because I want the student to get it, but I podcast everything anyway.
Okay.
I control the recorder, and when I'm gonna say something in class, now that I don't want, I stop recording, I'm like, oh damn, they're taking it, it doesn't matter anymore. I can't edit it out.
Control.
Yeah, I've ceded control.
There you go.
Thank you.
True.
So sorry, I must go and speak to the legal guy, so I am going to miss yours and share the,
Oh, yeah, no, this is just really, I'm just walking through.
I'm assuming they know most of them.
Actually, what it was during the, well, talking about the news, the news this way. Because I hadn't really delved into this.
I don't know that I've used it yet. I've used them to pull another. All right, let's see if I can get done and get back up. And then with me.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Well, I just wanted to let you know it's not,
appreciate that. Thank you.
it's not personal to you. I just told John I would do that.
No, I understand.
I've seen it all. I have seen it all. And this is the issue.
So, would you like